Hey everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Snapchat. I'm joined today by none other than Cozy Snap. Cozy, how are you doing today, my friend?
Oh, I'm feeling alive. We have the last week of the season, man. Just killer cards. I thought it was a pretty good season overall, man, and just feeling good. Excited for next week because of the season, because of hopefully a balance patch. Things are going great, man. How about yourself?
I'm laughing because we're always hoping for a balance patch. It's the thing we talk about so often in Marvel Snap. Always hoping for a balance patch. I'm doing great. I've been loving the game. A lot of experimentation. I got Negasonic last week. I got Kitty Pryde this week. And I've been loving Kitty Pryde. I think it's a great card. It's a lot of fun to play. I think it's just great. It's just a cool design. I think it's really good for Marvel Snap to have these very interesting cards. And I love it. I've been having a ton of fun. And Cozy, we had a lot of fun on your podcast recording it. So why don't you give us the rundown on what we were talking about on your side?
Yeah, man. So we are introducing a new subject on both channels. We're going to be talking about a new card of the week, which is Kitty Pryde, the new location, which I know everybody is loving this time around, and we're going to talk about just a card of the week. We're going to bring up a card each time, and today's card was Mr. Fantastic. But other than that, the topics, we talked about the biggest sleepers, which I thought we had some really solid ones this time around, so play those before it's too late. We had the things that need to change were some positive fellows, but it's time for some things to get addressed. And we talked about those items that we want the team to address. And then April 2023 season preview. We talked about the new cards. We talked about Hitmonkey and the wild variants that are out there, Alex.
And over here, we're going to be talking about the meta snapshot for March 2023. It's in the rearview mirror, and we got to discuss what we saw and what might be coming in the future. We're going to be giving our final rankings for the new cards that landed in March, and then we're going to be talking about the nerf cards and how we think they're still, honestly, pretty playable. But before that, Cozy, we've got to have our conversation about Kitty Pryde, because as I alluded to prior, I think this card is really, really good. I've had a ton of fun with it. For me, it's 6,000 tokens well spent because I'm just having fun. How has your experience been?
It's different. It's very different. Now, I know Glenn last week said he wanted a one-cost card to challenge Sunspot. We could break that down in a moment. But Kitty Pryde, to me, of course, it has a lot of great synergy. As you know, we're going to talk about it, I'm sure. But Beast Bounce, obviously, is great. And a free token, per se, that you can keep using in Lockjaw, and it comes back and it powers up. Really good stuff. It adds another layer of just thinking, right? Of pulling her into your hand and putting her back out there. But Alex, to me, the reason why I think she can challenge Sunspot in some ways is that you are getting to utilize a resource that the opponent can't all the time. And it's a free one at that, right? The fact that you can play, I don't know about you, but when I was testing her, the fact that you can fill up a lane and then pull her back out and do it for Angela or do it for a bonus, or just have her on the +5 location and the opponent doesn't know if you're going to take that back. You don't always have to take her into your hand. The scaling's nice. Dude, she's a good card.
Yeah, and I even had a moment. I played her on turn 3 into Space Throne, and the opposing player played Green Goblin. They tried to catch me with the Green Goblin, nope. And then turn 4, I pulled her out, right? It was great. It was an awesome play. And you're right. It actually provides a lot of mind games, a lot of utility from a location perspective, incredible synergy with Angela and Bishop. It's wild what these two cards can do. And the thing I really like about it, I think it's a really high skill cap card too, because you always want to play on curve, right? But Kitty Pryde is kind of one of those cards. It's similar to Sunspot, where when you don't have a curve, Sunspot kind of smooths it out a little bit. This card does the same. Well, you know what? I didn't get to, it's turn 3 and I have a lizard. I don't have anything better to play. And, Kitty Pryde's there.
You said it perfectly, because I don't know about you, but when I was first playing her, I was trying to do her effect all the time. And then you're like, well, you don't really need to. And then it messes up some of your other plays. But man, if you got your 3-drop on turn 5 or 4, let's say, and you just need that extra, use of mana, energy, she's just great because you're getting value out of that, right? And technically, in cases like that, you're getting more value than you would on Sunspot in some cases, but because you're getting 2 to the 1 for your energy. So very interesting. She can scale nicely. I think on average for me, she scaled less than Sunspot in a lot of ways, but she just plays very differently. And it's a card that I wish wasn't locked, man. I want everybody to have this.
Yeah, it's an incredibly fun card to play, but what I will say is Sunspot you can play on turn 6 and then absorb extra mana. You know what I mean? Sunspot can do that. A lot of cards we play in Marvel Snap have immediate impacts. You cannot play this on turn 6 because it's a 0. You have to actually engage with the mechanic and generate its value. So it is something that requires practice, and that's why I think it's interesting. But keep in mind, while you're doing that, you're generating value for like Bishop, you're generating value for Angela, you're generating value for everything else. So I do think it's a really awesome card. And you know what? You brought up something really interesting, Cozy. I thought it'd been cool if they maybe released this to Pool 1 and just the next chest everyone opened or the next reserve, but boom, it's Kitty Pryde. Because this card's fun. It's a 1 cost. I think people want to engage with it. It activates Bishop, Angela, right? Which are cards everybody has. Like, let's go. This could have been the card that was released into Pool 1.
It's just a fun card, man. I think it has so much going for it. And definitely, this is what I like to see, man. Ones that kind of, we talk about like breaking the rules of Snap. It doesn't break the rules. It introduces new mechanics. And even the location we all hate, it plays it. Like Ego will play it right too. It'll pull it back out and put it. Yeah, have you seen that? It's kind of interesting that it also does that for this as well. So really fun card to interact with. Excited to see where she synergizes. I think Zoo is great, and man, Bounce is just. I like that. I think they nailed the mechanics down. Glenn did the Twitter post about it. You can't, Bounce, makes her for free, but she doesn't get her +2, so it kind of equals out a little bit. Collector, once they fix that, she's only going to get better. And in turn, she's a huge buff to Collector, a massive one, because you're able to pretty much all the time get value there as well, Alex. So that's the new card of the week, and we'll give her a ranking on your second subject. But dude, I'm a big Kitty Pryde fan.
Absolutely, me too. I think it's a great card, and people are going to get angry if we don't talk about whether or not it's worth 6,000. I find myself torn here because I'm like, listen, if you're a free-to-play player and those tokens are really hard to come by, and they are, it's hard to warrant spending 6,000 on a card like this, because I still think ultimately the big bads, you don't have the buyer's remorse, right? Like you get that, like this is coming down the line. But for me, I'm happy about this purchase. Like I feel good about this 6K because I'm actually having so much fun with this card.
Well, Alex, this is kind of my current unlock order for the Pool 4 and 5 cards in general, and I kind of like value how they are as a card. And now that, again, it's going to take some time, but now that we can't buy Pool 3 cards, you are going to have a bigger surplus of tokens. People are going to be able to start buying some new cards every now and then. Now, on here, where would I put Kitty? Definitely not over Shuri, Thanos, Darkhawk, Galactus. I think Valkyrie is still a better card. Zabu for 3K, Null for 3K. These all make sense over Kitty, in my opinion. I would probably place her, honestly, right after Bast. I would put her right above Stature even, because you can play her in so many more decks than this that I think she'd go kind of where that Kang is in a way. Do you agree?
I pretty much do agree. I'm actually amazed at how much we're thinking exactly the same. I would have put her after Silver Surfer. I would probably take her over Bast. Because I do think Bast is probably a candidate to drop into Pool 3, maybe immediately, like we don't know. But I think Silver Surfer is still like overall better. But I do think that Kitty Pryde is an excellent card. And when it turns into a 3K card, I think it's going to come to the near top of the list because it's just so fun to play. And I think we play card games to have fun, so I think it's worth it.
Without question.
And with that being said, Cozy, I think we have to take a moment here to talk about the meta of March 2023. It has been a wild month. It's been crazy. We had a balance patch. Things did shift. Like, I think that we're kind of underestimating how much the balance patch actually did, Cozy, because like there is one deck that we're going to talk about that maybe stayed a little too high, but I think we have more variety now than we did before. Cozy, what has been your experience thus far?
Yeah, I think the meta's in an interesting spot. I love, viewers here and listeners can get a little bit of a sneak peek into the meta deck report. I didn't do it right away because I think I needed things to settle just a little bit and see how things flushed out. I think we have definitely if you have T1 decks and T2, T1 being the best. I think we have a T0 deck, and then we have about 4 T1s, and then we have about 4 or 5 T2s. And so I like that. I think that's a decent mix. The T0 is the outlier for sure. And obviously, we don't have to be too crazy about it and talk too much about it because she gets enough limelight as it is. But obviously, Shuri's still in a league of her own. She can be beat, Alex, definitely. But she is in a league of her own. She's who I have as kind of like the sole T0 deck, kind of the easiest to play, the easiest to have a good advantage on. If your opponent doesn't have the right cards, you're going to have a significant advantage, right, man? So we could just get that one out of the way that she's like the T0, yeah?
Yeah, Shuri's still too strong. Like, it's still annoying to play against. Every time I queue into a Shuri player, like, I kind of judge them. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm like, come on, man. Really? This is what we're doing now? And I think Shuri has to get adjusted still. And I think one of the things that bothers me, especially when we're going into this season where we're anticipating balance to be legit. We're talking about these like mind game style decks, these decks that require like a greater skill cap. Like borderline Ego can play Shuri effectively. Like really, like Ego can just win, get to infinite with Shuri. Like it really is not that hard to play. Like you put Cosmo, you play Shuri, you play big card, you play Taskmaster. That's it. Like really, even if you don't play Cosmo, you can skip all your turns except 4, 5, and 6 and win the game consistently every single time.
Yeah, what stinks too is like, it's kind of like what was going on with Sarah Surfer. Like, I love Sarah so much as a card. Like, I do like Shuri. I think it's fun to make a card double in power. I think that's really cool. I think we talked about this last time. As long as there's something that can equal that weight and that punch, you know, whether you make her on location. I love the idea of Shuri, and I don't want her to be, like, leaderfied. I've gotten used to her to where I can beat her pretty reliably now, but she is definitely, still, she's in a league of her own. For the average Marvel Snap player, she is the T0. Now, I'm not going to reveal all my stuff that I'll have for the meta deck report, but I do want to talk about some of the T1 decks and early thoughts. What are some T1 decks or top tier in your opinion?
I think Sarah Darkhawk is fantastic. In fact, I think Sarah Darkhawk is probably better than Thanos now. Like, I would go as far enough to say that I think that Sarah Darkhawk can reliably beat almost any deck in the game. And I like to see that. I think Darkhawk's a fantastic card. It was in our top 10s like unanimously last week. Sarah is a fantastic card. And I think the disruption pieces of that deck list work really well too. And anytime Control is making a comeback, I get excited because I think Control is a very awesome archetype that I love to see in the meta.
Yeah, oh man, it's interesting. I don't know if I put that in T1. It's close. It's very close. I have Sarah Darkhawk very, very high up there. I would probably put what I call Rocks and Hawks. It's right there too because of the punching weight it has behind it and the multiple win conditions behind it as well. If I were to pick a Darkhawk deck, I would lean towards it. Maybe that's because of my comfortability in play. For my T1 decks, and I still think I still think Thanos is a good deck. I'm so glad it's not being played near as much. I think Thanos is still, he's T1 in my opinion. But people are like played him so much and he's not as easy. Like Shuri's easy to play, right? Whereas Thanos, yeah. I think people are, you got to think a little bit more. Still a really competitive deck though. It still does a good job. It fixed a lot, man. I have to say, it did really hurt Thanos' like just effortless Quinjet BS, if you will. You know, Galactus also, I think Galactus, man, I don't know about you. He feels like a T1, but also in some players' hand, like a T3. Like some people just don't play him right, and he can feel very but he can also feel very, very strong. What do you think about Galactus at the moment?
So first of all, I do agree Thanos is incredibly powerful, still top tier deck. And I think that the amount of power they took off it with the Quinjet nerf is appropriate. And I think the deck's in a really good spot. It feels less oppressive, and it feels like you have some counterplay to it, which I think is great. With regards to the Galactus plays, I think you're right. Galactus, like, it requires some skill to kind of hide and mask that you're playing Galactus, but you know why I've not lost to Galactus players lately? Ironically, I'm playing Negasonic. I've been experimenting with Negasonic, and seriously, I like the card. I've kind of warmed up to it over the last week or so, and it hates Galactus. It loves just munching whatever Galactus has to play on turn 6, and no one expects Negasonic against the Galactus, right? So that's actually saved me quite a bit of cubes, honestly.
Oh, I'll talk. I have a lot to say about Negasonic on our next subject. No question. The new card's final rankings, like, just a very strong card. And Control with that, very strong. Daredevil and her, amazing. I do, you know, right now, if you were to say like more of the free-to-play per se decks that aren't Thanos, that aren't Darkhawk even, the good cards deck, I will stand by. It got an answer for everything. It's what I took up a majority of my way to infinite. And in general, I think it's so funny. I see it all the time. Like, I created this deck, people say, and I think deck ownership's kind of hilarious. But I think Wave 5 decks is what I'll call them. Just Wave 5. It's nothing new under the sun. Wave 5, playing Wave on turn 5, and then playing She-Hulk, followed by a 5-cost drop, or just playing Wave by itself. That is where we're still seeing a lot of use in Arrow. Wave 5 decks and playing those and having those ready to go with Doctor Doom if you don't want to play anything else, or playing it with Arrow in tandem, playing it with Claw. We kind of talked about that even a little bit over there. With Valkyrie, with Devil Dinosaur, with Iron Man. That right now is in a strong place. There is a good set list of cards. It's like the good cards with Wave. But I think Wave 5 is up there as a T1 deck. Definitely a T1 deck, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah, no kidding. Wave into anything on turn 6 is beautiful. Obviously, She-Hulk's incredible. And then, like, it's just, I actually was playing with Kitty Pryde with a Wave 5 deck. Basically, I was playing Wave on turn 5, and I was moving a Nightcrawler. So then on turn 6, I could have an Arrow drop, which basically negated their play. And then I would play both Miles Morales and Kitty Pryde again.
Yes.
It was beautiful. It's beautiful. What you can do with Wave is just incredible. And that's why I think it's legit one of the best cards in the game. Like, I think that it's like, it's always on the cusp of our top 10. It's always on the cusp. But like now with Kitty Pryde and with all the combo stuff that's coming with Hitmonkey, Wave might be pretty damn wild. Like, we're just waiting to unlock the potential of this card.
Yeah, and it's been KM Best said it last week on the Snapshot. It's like in a game about priority, when you play Wave, like you're already ahead, right? So like it's already, if you have priority and you play Wave, things are still looking pretty good for you. And then yes, Air Control, you brought it up. I think it is a fantastic deck. A little bit tougher to pilot, but the answer to everything is what feels so good. I climbed so much with that deck. I would put that borderline T1, if not the very top of T2, very kind of there for T1. And just a good climbing deck that teaches you like a lot of lessons per se and practices, best practices in ladder climbing. In T2, I have Electro. There's always good Electro reveal. Probably like the king of free-to-play or king of like low pool, low cards. Get Electro, play some good ramp decks. You know that, you love your Doom Odin. Love your Doom Odin, right? And I think Bounce is at the top of Bounce Disrupt right now is a T2 that will be T1, I think, or in my opinion.
And I think people are sleeping on discard. Like, I got to like 95 running MODOK discard. Like,
so dependable.
Literally. And like, guys were not expecting it. I feel like because I was playing a deck that a lot of people weren't anticipating, like no one knew how to respond to it. Like they just weren't respecting how much I was going to put up. MODOK is a really good discard card. And the reason why I like it is because you play a discard deck that only has a couple discard pieces. You have Lady Sif, you have Calling Wing, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. With MODOK. And then like it's enough to get a like 212 Morbius and a 312 Mystique.
It's tough to catch up to the power, especially when those swarms are in hand. Like, what's coming. Like, it's about it's about to hurt, man. Discard, love the place with that's at, man. Silver Surfer feels so good right now. And it is, you know what it is, man? And this is how you know a card was too good. Was my wife, may she rest in peace, Arrow. She almost had to be in every deck. So if a deck didn't want to have Arrow in it, or like it just didn't really make sense, it hurt the deck. Because of the way and how great she was and utilized. So Silver Surfer, like, you don't need an Arrow in the Silver Surfer deck, right? And so because she's kind of out of every deck, this is spiked up very strong, especially those that did buy, let's say, the December season pass and wants to know if this card is still viable. Very, very good as well, Alex. So definitely the meta is in a great, interesting spot at the moment, and excited to see as it develops some more.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing, right? We want to see this meta continuously develop. Obviously, Shuri just kind of remaining at the absolute top is a little frustrating. I think a lot of people are still riding Thanos right now. It's a really good deck. It's still tier 1, and people invested tokens in it. So that's kind of the thing I want to say, too, is I think that a lot of people are still frustrated with how much Thanos they're seeing. I think Thanos was touched up enough to leave for now. I really do, because I think the changes were fair. And I just think that, like, people bought it. People spent their tokens. It's still a good deck. And I think people just want to play out the card they spent their tokens on. Like, they invested in that deck, and they're going to rip it to infinite. Like, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. The Shuri, I think, needs to get slapped down a little bit. Like, Shuri feels way more problematic than Thanos does, even though Thanos is still relatively popular.
Well, for sure. I think the thing with Thanos is I think he's in a fine spot. Absolutely. The thing is, you don't want to crush a card to the ground. What makes me chuckle, too, is in the most recent tournament I was in, I did a Silver Surfer Thanos deck. And the commentator's like, well, we got a Thanos deck here. And I hate that we've been doing this, right? Like, if you have Darkhawk, if you have Thanos in a deck, if you have, Shuri's a bit different because she is really that polarizing at the moment. But, like, Thanos in a Silver Surfer deck, it's not a Thanos deck. It is a Silver Surfer deck that Thanos is in and that he happens to have some stone utility. So we can't call every deck that has Thanos like, this is a Thanos deck, right? I love that about him. I think that he should be a card that you can kind of help out curve. You can use the utility of the stones, and I am thankful. I've like, even with Kitty, man, I didn't want to play her into Lockjaw because I loved Lockjaw, man. I've been playing him since early beta. I'm just tired of the RNG. Like, I don't know. I'm glad I'm not playing Lockjaw as much. I love him. I hope he stays the same. I just hope he fades away just a bit. I'm ready to move on from the old dog there.
Yeah, no kidding. I love Lockjaw. I think it's a great archetype, but you're right. Like you kind of know what you're getting when you queue up a Lockjaw deck. And the one thing I will say too about like the whole tournament scene is like something that I've been hearing from a lot of creators, a lot of tournament players, a lot of competitive players is like, hey, I'm in this tournament. I want to be competitive. But if I bring Shuri or Thanos, everyone's going to call me an asshat. So I guess I can't bring those. And then the person that brings it just smashes everybody and everyone's upset, right? So it's like, what do you even do, right? Like, what do you even do? Like, it's funny you bring that up, right? I know your deck. You were not playing a Thanos deck. Thanos was in your deck, right? It's not the same thing. But people saw, they're like, damn, he's playing a Thanos deck. It's like, no, he's not. Thanos is in it. This is not a Thanos deck.
Yeah, and it's tough because, when you have cash prizes, I don't know. It's for me, like, what it does too, and I hate it. That's why I was kind of hoping that, like, when we were talking about Hitmonkey on my side, I was like, I hope Sarah doesn't get too good because I hate when my favorite cards, like, dude, I was the biggest Thanos stan. I loved Thanos, but then I had to stop using him because he was just too good. And then everyone, exactly. And I don't love that. I don't do that myself. But yeah, dude, it is an interesting position for meta players. I don't blame, by the way, people. I think it's stupid to get mad at people for bringing really high performing cards in a competitive tournament. But I don't know. It's just not my style. But Alex, let's go ahead and go to the new March cards, man. Let's get onto that subject. And we talk Kitty Hawk a lot. We're at that one in a good bow. Negasonic. I saw your tweet. Saw that you somewhat regretted it, but it sounds like you kind of turned that leaf. I had to actually comment it. I was like, oh, I hope you like. I think Negasonic is awesome. I want you to have the floor, dude.
Okay, so Negasonic is a good card. It's really interesting as a control piece. It's just, for me, it wasn't worth 6,000 tokens.
Okay.
And I think this is the thing that's problematic, right? Like, there are cards that we talk about, we get excited about. I actually like Negasonic. But the truth is the question I get a million times, and I alluded to it prior, is it worth 6,000 tokens? That's what people want to know. Is it worth 6,000 tokens? Negasonic is not worth 6,000 tokens, but it's a damn good card. I think that Negasonic is a lot of fun to play. And again, part of it might be because it's 6,000 tokens and no one knows I have it. So when I drop it, they're like, what the hell, right? So maybe that's part of the enjoyment I'm experiencing. But like at the same time, I think it's really interesting in the sense that like as a 3/4, it's like you kind of wouldn't mind if it survives, right? Yeah. But as a 3/4 that blows up their trade with Daredevil, it feels pretty good too. But like at the same time, it's like Shang-Chi could have done that and been 3 power on the board. So it's like, it's an interesting card because it does so many interesting things.
Yeah, as someone who just loves control, and I play a lot of it, of the archetype, and I had to not play it for a while because of the Space Stone. But I think Negasonic was a tricky one. When she came out, everybody's like, let's play Destroy, man. We got a free Destroy, another Destroy card. Let's go. And then she was not that great in Destroy decks. And then you tried it with Nimrod and whatever. But I don't think she's meant for Destroy whatsoever. Her tech ability, first of all, she's the Shuri. Just, man, you put her with Daredevil, dude, it is laughable what you can do against strong decks or decks that just don't play a lot of cards out, right? But number two, I think she's just awesome to throw in a lane, set it and forget it. I talked about that last week with K and Best. I had her in my Silver Surfer deck. And people were like, well, okay, you get she's a 3/6, but she can still die. But it wasn't about that. I had Professor X in the deck because you can then safely, it's like a rescue almost. You can play Professor X right on top of her because the opponent doesn't want to lose their card. Then now you have 7 in that lane and it gives you a little bit better of a chance. I think Negasonic makes players think a lot more. An exciting tech card, just like Kitty, that I hope the public gets their hands on. 6,000 tokens. I just showed the graphic where I would put her on that list. But a very good card at that. And with that, we can go to Master Mold. I actually got all the cards this season. I have every one, and I enjoyed most of them. Master Mold, bro. What are your thoughts on Mold?
I like Master Mold. I ultimately didn't buy Master Mold. I just, tokens are expensive. I said, you know what, Master Mold, I'm going to skip. I really wanted Negasonic, who, by the way, we almost missed out on, beats Cosmo. It'll work through Cosmo, which is an extremely important thing. Yep. But Master Mold was one I skipped out on, but honestly, I do think it's really cool. You mentioned amazing combos, like on like late turns. Like you played early, obviously stuffing their hands amazing, but like playing Ronin and then stuffing their hand later on is pretty damn cool too, because Ronin's obviously a 5 play. I think it's a really interesting card. Also, shout out to the X-Men original animated series. I'm literally I just watched the Master Mold episode this morning. Nice. Yeah, so like I was like, hey, I know that guy. But I think it's a cool card. I really do. And obviously you have play experience with it, so why don't you fill us in?
First decks I made with it was a Ronin deck, and I also made a Darkhawk deck. I like it a lot. Disrupt Toxic isn't like exactly my play style all the time, so I don't play it all the time. It's so fun to test with. Very good card that fits in more decks than people would assume, and there's some really crazy things you can do. I think that you're going to see it some more with Hitmonkey and Bounce, and you don't always need to bounce it. It's kind of weird. I will give a shout-out to Dara. JN had Molded and Folded, I think is what his deck is called, and it wrecks. It's a very good card. And you know what? What I want to bring up with this is I would argue that Nimrod is the least, like, it's the most card out of all the new cards that we got this month, right? In my opinion, it's, I didn't get, like, I got my little report back. You can get this thing where you can see how much you played with the new cards, and, like, I didn't do a lot of Nimrod action. I did not. I think I read something on the devs Q&A, how they pick which card is going to be the season card, and then which ones they kind of, and then they make all the cards around it. That's kind of what I heard. I don't know. I kind of feel like Kitty should have been the season card, or maybe Negasonic, or even Master Mold. I think any of those would have been a better choice, because it doesn't, you definitely missed the mark, dude. If the worst card in the batch is, maybe it's not the worst, but to me, it's definitely just, it's not the best as the season pass card.
It's by far the worst. It's not even close.
I'm trying to be nice.
Like, it's by far, it's not even in the same league as the other cards.
With
right?
Galactus,
like,
it's good,
Nimrod,
but that's it, yeah.
Yeah, it's Nimrod, and then it's Master Mold, and then there's a massive gap, Negasonic, and then another massive gap, which is Kitty Pryde. Like, and I think Kitty Pryde, you nailed it. It should have been the season pass card, because if it was, it gets access to many more people, about 50% of people that buy the season pass, and then they just enjoy the game more. It's just a fun card. Like, I'm telling you, like, I don't even care if it's competitive. It's Cozy, and it is competitive. It's decent enough. It's just fun to play. And I think that, like, at the end of the day, isn't that not important? How many times we got to bring up fun factor on this podcast?
Yeah, because you couldn't really argue around it. Like, you could say Nimrod, all right, gives pool 1 and 2 players like a needed tool, but Kitty Hawk would probably serve a great purpose in there as well. I don't know. I'm glad Nimrod's in the game. I actually like the card. I think it's fun. I like the idea that you can spread, clone it. Again, Galactus, I think it's cool in destroy decks. But it just didn't. Yeah, I don't know. I think you could have even sold more to the public too. Like, no one knew who the hell Pink Kirby Jigglypuff was here. You know, I think Kitty Pryde. Yeah, I think that was the one to have in general. So yeah, ranking wise, I don't know if I would say massive gap. I think it's Kitty's probably my favorite. Negasonic and Mold, and then Nimrod is my personal rankings.
The other thing that doesn't make sense is that Kitty Pryde is a X-Men, and the whole theme is X-Men. So, like, oh man, like, you're right. Like, what? Why was it not the season pass card?
Yeah.
It should have been.
Yeah, and then like Toad could have been in there. There's like other X-Men they definitely could have thrown in there. I don't know. I know we have, they will come out in the future. Just a bit interesting for something as hype as X-Men season goes, right? But overall, those are my final rankings for the new March cards, bud.
Cozy, one thing that I think is a really fascinating point of conversation is that when a card gets nerfed, a lot of people are like, well, that's dead. Time to move on to the next tier 1 thing. But honestly, sometimes a nerfed card gets more an added utility just because maybe it's just not as popular as it was anymore. It takes people by surprise, or maybe it's just not as bad as people initially thought it was. So we're going to go through some of these nerfed cards and talk about how we're continuously playing them and whether or not you still think they're viable. Now, on the screen, Cozy, you've got Arrow, the waifu, and I feel so bad because I know that, like, you took legitimate emotional damage on patch day.
Yeah.
And you powered through the podcast. It was an amazing sight to see. But talking about Arrow, have you been still playing Arrow?
I appreciate you recognizing my bravery, Alex. It's tough. It's tough, especially. There's a couple Twitter comments I got back that was like, man, I heard some takes that you had back in June about Arrow. And I'm like, I know. I loved it. Arrow, I think it's still fine. I think it's nowhere near the play it was at. Obviously, I think it just made Wave even better in a sense because, again, the Wave 5, Arrow, and 6. I do have to say it is somewhat nice not seeing her all the time and always having to factor her in. The one power buff up did nothing. I still think they probably nerfed her a bit too hard. But again, that's kind of like the shell shock that we always have. I always want to talk about Arrow as much as I can, but I just want to kind of call back to a nerf with something like Darkhawk. They said that they nerfed Darkhawk before the Zabu changes were going to go live, and everyone's like, why would you do that? That's so stupid. Darkhawk is fine as a 4-0. I'm glad. Hey, we got to owe credit. You cannot complain and get mad at something and then not follow back up about the complaint, right? Guys, yeah, Darkhawk is a 4-0. Thank God. He doesn't need to be any better than he is. He's a great card already, right? So, nerf cards Angela, we could bring her up. Not just the ones recent. I think it's cool to look at the ones that have been touched up. Zabu Ben Brode, it was so cool. He commentated one of my tournament matches, and he kept kind of giving me some thumbs up for using Zabu. And he's like, Zabu's not dead. Everybody complained that Zabu was going to die. I love where Zabu's at. I think he's perfect. They actually, for something such a big weighted decision, they did a good job. I like where Silver Surfer's at. I don't feel like I'm wasting a lane anymore. The +2 I've gotten used to. So they're doing great with the nerfs. The most recent ones, Arrow, we'll have to wait and see. What are your thoughts on the other ones?
So Bishop was one that was nerfed a long time ago, right? And Bishop's back with Kitty Pryde. Like, Bishop's huge. I got Bishop to 10, 11 easily in games today. It was wild what Bishop was able to do. Angela as well, as you mentioned. And Arrow, I'm just going to throw this out here, Cozy, and I'm going to regret saying this. I should not say this to the viewership here, but Arrow's change buffed Sandman 2. Let's not forget it's a buff to Sandman 2 now because you're only playing one card. So, I think Arrow's change makes it a little more reliable, and it does suck compared to the old one, but I'm still playing it. I'm still winning because of it, and people don't expect it. And the thing I like about it, and I think you will too, and this is as someone like me and you, we love decks. We send decks to each other all week. And the one thing about it is I now get to play 5 costs that aren't Arrow. When I design a deck and I don't put Arrow in it, no one cares anymore. If I designed a deck last month and I didn't have Arrow in the 5 slot, people were like, bruh, this deck sucks. I'm like, it's because Arrow's too good.
Oh, yeah.
Now the design landscape opens, and I think that's important.
She-Hulk should be in most decks, but yeah, we were playing a 10-card deck game for a long time with those two. It really limited design, limited other cards. I think we saw the exact same thing with Angela. When I remember 2-cost cards was kind of a joke, because if you didn't have Angela, or if you didn't tote up Angela, I was like, what are you doing? And then it opened up the play field, and I think that is the benefit to... I can't even say benefit. It hurts my heart. But yes, it is. That did help with the change. Maybe they buff her back up a little bit. She-Hulk, man, I saw almost dude. She-Hulk does exactly what I wanted from her. She's still, dude, she's just fine. Thanos is just fine. So the nerfs are. I think they did a pretty good job outside of not nerfing enough. But what about Red Skull? Let's talk about a week digesting Red Skull. What are your thoughts here?
I think Red Skull's fine. Honestly, I think that it's still super good with Shuri, and I think that the change they made was very intelligent, the way they kind of made it more of a 5-drop. So if they do make a major change to Shuri, which kind of makes me sad, we'd mentioned 100 times. You said it on this podcast. We don't want Shuri to get leadered. We don't want that. Hopefully they bring Leader back at some point, by the way. I tried to bring Leader back. I tried the Electro Daredevil Leader. It was so bad. It was still impossible. Leader is so gone. It's so done. We just, we got to bring it back eventually. But I think Red Skull's interesting.
Okay.
Because they adjusted it in a way that even if you don't have Shuri, let's say Shuri doesn't exist, this card could possibly see play. Honestly, they wouldn't be great. I think there's better 5s, but it's not horrible. In a 0 deck, you know what I mean? It has a place, and I think that's important.
Oh, yeah, Red Skull's good. Yeah, I think Red Skull's really good. I don't know. He's definitely a top contender of that Arrow. He doesn't have a ability, right? So that makes him, even if he was the best 5-drop, no question, at least he doesn't have an ability that you're abusing. It's more of just the power stat line. And again, how they just Shuri, I think it will also help. I think if they do things to Shuri the right way, it might help what we see with Red Skull. Overall. But yeah, definitely opened up the playing field a ton. We're close to a very good feeling Marvel Snap.
Yeah, there's one nerfed card that's actually on the screen right now, which I kind of feel like we might need to make some changes to, and that's Magic. I still feel like Magic's awkward. It still feels okay in negative decks. There's still times to play Magic, I think. But I think this is probably one of the nerfs that has felt a little harder. It's still good. It's still not horrible. But compared to old Magic, it is it's not even close, right?
Yeah.
But would you touch up Magic a bit? Is this the one that feels like it just never came back?
Yeah, we already. I think we talked about it a few weeks ago. 4-cost, man. I think she could be a 4-cost. I'm fine with it. I think that solves a lot of issues. You can't play her on turn 6. That's fine. Let me play her turn earlier. She's just very awkward to make fit into decks. I think she's a card that just opens up so much more creative deck building, and I would love to see. that come back, man. It's a couple other cards that, got nerfed. It's tough to think of them on the, right away. But, dude, Mysterio, I remember no one was even expecting Mysterio to get nerfed. Like, why would you change him? And like, God, he is good, man. And like, this is a fine card. He is complete. Now that you can do Bast and have like a mini Doctor Doom, he is such a good card that has a lot of play with the bounce now, with Angela. So he was just fine. Alex, is there any other cards that got touched up?
Before we say that, it's worth noting that I don't think many people understand that interaction. They don't realize that if you Bast a Mysterio, all the illusions become 3s. Like, I don't think people, I think they think, like, oh, it becomes 2-3, and then the illusions are still 0s. No. The illusions become 3, so it's like a 9-power play across the board. It's actually ridiculous when you consider Bast is still an amazing card. And Mysterio gets absolutely insane with Bast. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Oh, so crazy. You're giving up 1 power on your main one to have spread it across. Yeah, it's a very, very good card. It's a 2/9. Yeah. How can you complain? Now, I know obviously we had a collector and stuff. I think that was pre-launch. Tell me about
Lady Sif.
Oh, yeah.
I think Lady Sif's one that comes to mind. It was a nerf because it was a 2/4, but like it still is totally fine because you have Colleen Wing on 2, you have Lady Sif on 3. Like, if I told you that Lady Sif was a 2/4, you'd probably feel like it was overpowered, right?
Yeah. I don't know if she could go back to 2/4. I think she's fine where she's at, right? So it's kind of like whatever. I think, yeah, if you did like yeah, I think she's okay. I think 3/4 is just fine. You have other ways to play. You have other cards to play, and this kind of keeps some checks and balances there. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay with the 3/4 here. They did a good job, and I hope people get access. I know they said it before, but all the stuff we got in beta, like this beauty, I hope people get access to these. They said they will. But yeah, Lady Sif, very, very good still.
Yeah, and there was the card backs and stuff like that as well that we didn't get. Like, I, for instance, missed out on the Wave card back, which I think is one of the best ones. I think that was the first beta season because I got in at the start of the second beta season, so I missed that first month. And I think that I think they do have an intention to bring those back. I believe that's kind of been on their radar, which I think would be fair because I think the Punisher card back is really awesome. The Daredevil one's really cool too. Like, there are good ones from beta. Like, make no mistake.
Yep, without question, buddy, without question.
So I think that's going to actually end our show today, guys. And I want to say thank you so much for joining us, Cozy. As always, I think that is an absolute pleasure to get to speak to you. You are obviously an incredible deck builder. Fantastic tournament results, dude. Well done. You've been actually fantastic across the board, bringing some of the most unique deck lists to tournaments out there. And your meta reports are second to none. You do a fantastic job, not only on this podcast, but literally on every single thing you touch. So thank you so much for all the hard work you do for Marvel Snap, my friend.
Thanks, man. I'm terrible with compliments. Just a guy at the end of the day, man. Just a guy that makes content, nothing special. But I appreciate all that, man. It really means a lot. It's really cool. I'm definitely a competitive guy, so it felt good to do good in tournaments and whatnot. But I appreciate it. I don't know what to say. Thank you. Thank you so much, man. Really.
Of course. And you know what, guys? Good news. If you want to see more Cozy, it's right in the middle of the screen because that is where you get to go to watch the next version of Marvel Snap. We're going to be discussing the biggest sleeper and underrated cards. We're going to be discussing things that need to be changed in Marvel Snap and the April 2023 new cards coming. So thank you guys so much for watching. Click that link and we'll see you in the next Marvel Snap episode.